Hello and welcome back to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. And welcome to our drum roll, please. 200th episode of this very silly, very stupid podcast.
What a day.
Oh my god, yes. And like Lucas Matson, I'm quickly realizing that there's no return policy here. So we might be stuck with it. But
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Um yeah, but today it's a special day for other reasons because we're talking about the series finale of HBO's Succession.
What are we going to do now?
Wow. And joining me once again to discuss Succession, discuss Rich Royce, straight from the jerk dungeon he was being Peter spanked in. Guys, one more time. It's a Ebube. I would miss Succession for no other reason, but it gives me just a plethora of options for the intro. Like I don't even know. I wanted to use that jerk dungeon one, but I had so many options. I just wanted to do various versions and just have
Yeah.
all of them
The
in
writing is
the
so
episode.
good that these intro jokes, they're just not going to be the same.
No, they would not. They would not. There's only one other HBO show that's giving me as many options, but you know what? For now, we're not simping for those guys. Speaking of 200th episode, that was our 100th episode. So we're not. Well,
Yeah. Not yes.
100th
They
episode
know who
was
they know who they
they
are.
know they know who they are. We're talking about Succession, the series finale. First of all, before we go anywhere, guys, please rate and review this podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I know it seems like we're always saying it, but like genuinely, we're trying to do lots of cool things. We're reaching out to people, and most times people ask the first thing they check is like our reviews, our ratings, like so they need to see good numbers. If you listen on Spotify, we have like I think 79 ratings on Spotify now, which is really good. Like, don't get me wrong, but more than 10 of you are listening to our episode in Succession. So please just rate us if you're listening. Like, it really, I can't. I know we say it really helps, but it actually does really help because people look at that and people reject us
It
or accept us
it
based on.
totally helps. Yeah.
So please rate and review us. Spotify, Apple Podcast is better even because you can just leave a word review, so you can give the 5 stars and just say just say good podcast. That's all. That's all you need to say. Nothing else. It's not an essay. Um,
Or I
we're in the
like
middle
the
of
hosting
finale week
stars. Whatever you
at
want to
this
say. Like
point. Yeah,
whatever you want to say.
whatever
Just
you
say
want to say.
something. Say something. Hadja is going to clown you for this admin, by the way. But
That's her business. Um, just now, some of us have to sing for ourselves. So that's her business. It's the middle of finale week, guys. Also on this feed is our episode on the Barry season series finale. Please check
Mhm.
that out. That was also the end of another great old timer show. Yellow Jackets, the season finale, that was out on Monday, so you can check that out as well. We had a group of girls, a gaggle, as they like to be called, on the podcast with me. Later this week, on Friday, Chinedu and Emmanuel, maybe Ebube, and maybe another guest, will be talking about the Ted Lasso season and possibly series finale. So it's finales everywhere. Speaking of finales, last week, if you watched the Elizabeth Olsen True Crime Murder Show, we did that. We covered that. We did a series finale of that as well. And I was lucky enough to speak with the stars of Paramount Plus's No Escape, Abigail Laurie and Rian Barreto. Very, very fun conversation. So
Lots of
yeah,
puns.
lots of puns, lots of puns. That was fun. That was something that obviously you can't plan for that going into the interview, but it
Yeah.
just came up and they were so gracious about it. And I got to see Abigail at the event in person, and yeah, I mean it was just nice. So this is obviously talking about Succession series finale. We plan on having a follow up episode later in the week or early next week. Please, just because guys, we know ourselves, we'll probably have gone 3 hours if we did everything we wanted to say right now. So if you have questions about Succession, send them over, tweet at us, DM us, whatever, and we'll discuss it in the episode. This is for me personally, this is like this is like instant reaction. So I planned that between now and the next episode, I would have read all the interviews and listened to all the podcast appearances. And I don't know if Jesse is doing interviews because obviously he's most likely striking. But I'll listen to everything. I haven't even been on Twitter, like
I
just because
can't
I
I
want to
can't
do.
begin to stress how lucky we got with that.
Oh yeah,
We got so lucky because I'm pretty sure House of the Dragon is going to be affected. So
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I haven't even been on Twitter. Like these reactions are purely straight from my head. Like I was like, I don't want to see what people are even saying.
Hmm.
So yeah, hopefully by then we'll have like the context of the wider appreciation to enter that discussion. Also, it's a 200th episode. We may or may not be doing a mailbag episode. I'm thinking of just to see if we'll do one. But yeah, 200 episodes is ridiculous for such a stupid podcast. So I don't know if you have any questions. You have any things like if you want to find out about shows that we are watching right now
That we're not
or
talking
that we're
about.
not talking about, yes, that are not on HBO, um, or shows that maybe some of our all time or some of our favorite shows. You have any stupid questions about TV or whatever, you can send them to us. If we don't do a mailbag episode, and it means that we didn't get any questions, that means you guys don't really like us and you guys are mean. So I don't know. It's up to you guys whether you want to send questions or not. Also, you can leave YouTube comments. Speaking of YouTube, thank you to everyone that watches on YouTube and leaves the comments on YouTube. That really means a lot. I think that's a lot of admin. So can we should we go straight into the episode now? Straight in, 6 minutes in.
Might as
Um
well.
yeah, I spent way too long thinking about how to approach this episode. So which is kind
I'm
of
still
how
processing,
which is
which I
kind of
think
how
is
I ended
very
up at
understandable.
us doing a two-parter. But this is the series finale of Succession, titled with Open Eyes, written by creator Jesse Armstrong and directed by Mike Mylord. Um, I haven't spoken to Ayo since the finale. I don't know if he's seen it, but I spoke to him last week, and for the last few weeks, he's been saying that we need to start a
Hello, yo.
conversation. Hello, yeah, that we need to start a conversation. That could Succession be number one? Could it
Hmm.
be at the top of that mountain?
Hmm.
So
Well, those people who
I,
know themselves would be very sad if they heard Ayo say that.
I'm interested to see where he falls at after watching this finale because I personally don't think that the finale hurts his chances or his argument. Anyways, do you have any general thoughts before we go into the actual plot, or should we just go straight into the plot?
Yeah, I think just in a general sense, this finale was the right kind of divisive. Like the kind of divisive that has people talking about
Wait, it's divisive.
in a way, yeah. Because like
Oh,
I know you haven't looked at Twitter and stuff, and
at
to be
all.
honest, neither have I. I haven't checked the overall discourse and zeitgeist.
Hmm.
However, my phone has been blowing up. Like people have been reaching out
Fair
to me
enough.
directly, Twitter, Instagram, texts, you name it. And what I'm noticing is that in general, people like the episode,
Hmm.
and they like the episode as a finale of a season. Then they like the episode as like a finale of a series. They're different levels of appreciation or dislike for the episode. And
Hmm.
people do enjoy it. However, there are some people who are saying certain things don't make sense or don't add up. But I don't think they're saying it in the same way that they've done for things like Dexter or Game of Thrones, where like stuff was thrown away and things that were listed or given to us from the beginning um, weren't actually paid off. I think
Hmm.
everything was actually paid off in this episode. Like they paid off so many things. Even my whole
Things
thing
I didn't
about Kendall's,
expect.
yeah,
I did not
my whole thing
expect
about
that at
Kendall's children,
all.
for example,
Hmm.
right? That's something that was actually addressed, and sometimes it's stuff that was addressed before you realized it had already been addressed. Like the Kendall's children thing, we got our closure on that last episode when Rava took them out of the city because we don't see or hear from them or Rava again. Same thing
Hmm.
with Jess. Like those are things that are final that we don't realize are final in the moment that they're final. So now we have all these other things that are coming to a head, and everything. I mean, like I said, I'm still processing, but everything
Hmm.
about Succession that I've thought about since watching the finale last night, I I can say that I can come up with some version of the writing addressing it in one way or another, whether they prepared some type of speech for a character, whether it's something that they just showed like behind the scenes, whether it's some like random question, like it's all kinds of things. For example, like Kendall's whole thing with Hugo, if somebody wanted to be like, oh, like what about all the millions that Hugo was wolfing for in episode 9? Well, now we know that he's probably not going to get all that stuff because Carolina made a certain request That's
Oh
just a
yeah, I
very
mean,
that just
the
is a
person
very
who was
tiny
moved,
thing.
the person who was moved
Yeah,
54 is out of a job. Like I think that's kind of
exactly.
how it works.
Literally. So like all these things were put in place, and it brings up this question of what at what point do we say writing is doing too much? And I'm sure this is something we'll get into when we do our follow-up episode. But I
Yeah,
know at least one or two people were asking like, okay, this was a good finale, but how much of it how much can we call it a great finale? Like we kind of seem to be living in an era where a lot of writers are seemingly desperate to they're seemingly desperate to shock the audience or do what's unexpected. And that
hmm
was obviously the downfall of something like Game of Thrones, right? At least towards the end. Um, but I personally don't think that's the case here, because I think that, they kind of, there was a direction that was kind of agreed upon, a direction that was thought about and that was stuck to. And it just became a situation of how do we figure out the shape of that? So
yeah,
I think overall it's a good episode that's bringing discourse in the right kind of way, not in a we hate this or we feel cheated kind of way. It's more like in a what are the main takeaways from this? What is a real legacy of this? Why did this happen? And I think that's a good thing. I think overall it's a healthy finale, a good legacy for a show, and something that begs rewatch, because now people will be going and looking for all those things that may have led to this situation. I know somebody who started the first episode of Succession last night based on my recommendation,
fair
right?
enough.
Like, and that person
Um,
is going to enjoy the end, I think.
well, I think first of all we should mention, but for those watching on YouTube, if you do keep hearing buzzing sounds, um, people are
That is
coming for
a
ABB's hot takes. I think the police are on their way, so those are just sirens that you're
y-
hearing in the
yeah. This
background.
is I've been fighting people off all day. It's a whole thing, but yeah.
Speaking of hot takes, I mean, obviously, like I said, we're in finale week, and I've been trying to. I'm nothing if not a man who has an agenda on a whim, and
On a whim.
I on a whim, just drop one on a whim. But my agenda right now is that people should stop like elevating the importance of finales. Like
Yeah,
we should not. What's the word?
that is a fair statement.
Yeah, we should not summarize a show's entire existence and worth down to its finale. I mean, even Game of
Essentially, plot
Thrones.
isn't everything. Yeah.
Yeah, even Game of Thrones that generally had maybe not a bad finale, but a bad last season. To some people, a bad last couple of seasons.
Hmm.
Like it shouldn't invalidate what we felt in like seasons 1 to 3 or 4. Like like
Yeah.
especially
Game of
then.
Thrones is not lessened by season 8. Like Game of Thrones season 4, it's not made any less great by whatever may or may not have happened in the final
Yeah,
season.
and the show might be made less, 100%. That's because it's the sum of its
Overall.
parts, but it shouldn't be made worthless,
Hmm.
right? I think people like, for example, if you're going into Succession finale or even the Barry finale, because obviously both will happen the same night, and you're like, oh, they better stick this landing. I'm like, oh, what? They've given
Yeah.
us almost 40 episodes of
It's not like
great
they haven't been
TV.
living without sleep to deliver TV to you like
Yeah,
for
or
the
like,
past 4 years,
so you're
five
saying like,
years.
if Succession delivers one bad finale after 38 episodes of great TV, just like, nah, this show was not worth my time, not even top 20, not even top 30 of all time. Like, let's calm down, let's behave ourselves.
Okay, just to,
Um,
to play devil's advocate there,
mhm.
and I don't want to do that, but I guess I might as well. Um, I agree with you. However, there are some who would say that it is possible for a finale to be so bad that it does invalidate a lot of stuff that comes before, because it essentially negates or retcons things,
Well, yeah, yeah.
um, or
But
it
as if
kind of
the,
renders things like not really. It reduces rewatch value. Let's put it that way. Like, or for example, since the finale aired, I've heard at least one person say that they like some type of follow up, even though they know it's unlikely. They like
yeah.
some kind of follow up season or limited series that just shows what Greg is doing and what he does on his off time, right? And but that's because with this finale, people are thinking about things and they do have questions, and
Hmm.
their minds are still open to what could be happening in the world of this show. Whereas with something like Game of Thrones, a lot, and I really do mean a lot of the people I know who watched the show saw that finale and were like, I'm done with this. This is invalidated. Now, of course, not to get overly scientific or whatever, but I think most of the people who said that are people who weren't watching from like the earlier seasons year to
Mm-hmm.
year to
They
year. Those are
binged
people
it.
who
Yeah.
maybe watched the entire thing towards the end. So they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have as much of a connection, perhaps. But those people were not in. Once House of Dragon was announced, like many of us were like excited. But a lot of those people I'm talking about
Did
were
not.
not. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm not trying to get into any of this anymore. So I think that there is something to be said for quote unquote sticking the landing, even though myself and Mark Mylord hate that term. But but
I mean,
yeah,
I think obviously if a finale has plot points that renders everything just null and void, and that's a different conversation, right?
yeah,
Like there was nothing. I think there was nothing that they could have done in Succession finale, for example, that would have invalidated the emotional capital that we've given this people in the past 4 or 5 years, right? So that's my thinking.
exactly.
I mean, look, I don't spend too much time talking about finales because we have a lot to talk about. But like, I talked about this on Barry episode as well. Like, How I Met Your Mother is one of the most derided finales, right? And that was one of my favorite shows. And I have lots of
Was
problems. No, no, but I have lots of problems with that final season. But I'm still rewatching the show.
because
Like,
that's the thing.
I'm still,
It makes you question the integrity of everything you saw up until that point.
yeah, but
Because like you start
I'm
asking
still
questions like,
pulling up.
what was the point?
No, but I'm not. That's what I'm trying to. I'm still pulling up old episodes of How I Met Your Mother. I'm still watching season 2, episode 2, Single Stamina. I'm still watching random episodes. I'm still
The ducky
watching.
tie,
Yeah,
the
exactly. So
slap
like,
bet.
so like, oh, slap bet. Don't even get me started. So like, I don't know. Maybe this is now a me thing that like I can remove like my thoughts on the finale and still enjoy the parts that I really do enjoy.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, that's a whole different thing. I think we cannot agree. I don't know why we got into this because we cannot agree that it quote unquote stuck the landing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why we entered this 20-minute tirade. But okay, let's talk about the
It had to
show.
be done.
Yeah, it had to be done. So the episode starts. Kendall is losing votes, and Shiv and Martin are gaining votes. And then my first question is: does Shiv in this discussion with Martin inadvertently pitch Tom in this scene?
100%.
I only clocked it in the second time I was watching. I
100%.
was like, "Oh my god, Shiv, you're actually helping Tom's case."
She
Let me read
literally said, Tom will suck the biggest dick
Dick
in
in
the
the
room.
room,
And
which
Matson
was
was
going to
like,
be
oh.
one of your intros, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, God.
So what does she say? She says about Tom, he's very
Can't believe there's a cutting room floor for interest. I'm sorry.
there's there,
I need a moment to get over that.
there's a cutting room floor. She says he's a very plausible corporate matter, but he's also a highly interchangeable modular part, which is they're just words. If you think that makes sense,
Words that
that's
funny enough actually mean something.
yeah, it means something, but like nobody puts those words together. Like, what kind of?
Not
I
at the
don't know.
moment,
I don't know
anyway.
what school she went to. I was thinking about that today when they said she hates to fail an exam. I was wondering, I wonder what school she went to. She at Wharton, she at Harvard Business. What kind of? Probably studied law and policy and politics, didn't she? And then did an MBA.
Perhaps.
Then she says
Public
about Tom
policy
again.
type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for continuity, ATN is going gangbusters and he's well liked. So she says that he's a highly interchangeable modular part, which means that's a good thing for someone like Madsen. She says he's well
it's
liked,
exactly what he
and
wants. Yeah.
and then she says he'll suck the biggest dick in the room. So she's helping her husband, but she doesn't know that she's helping him get the CEO job. Anyway, Shiv gets a call from Caroline that Roman is in Barbados. Obviously, we call this the Caribbean Air Claire,
Hmm.
which leads both her and Kendall to try and get Roman's vote. Um, my note in this scene, I even caught this note the first time, was that Shiv was talking a lot in that scene. Like Martin did not get a word, and not that she was interrupting him, but it almost felt like she was insecure. Like she always just had to say something to like cover the space, which
I mean, you
obviously.
already know what I'm going to say. Like something, what I've always been saying. She's overplaying her hand due to overconfidence, even though in this case, she is somewhat nervous.
Mhm.
Imagine being so confident in your own value that you try to deride someone else's value and inadvertently increase their value.
But do you think she was deriding Tom's value, or she was trying to help him genuinely?
I don't know if she was trying to help him. I think at that moment she still wasn't quite sure what she was feeling towards Tom and where she would want him to go. You know, after she does have a conversation with him, right?
Hmm.
When she's kind of heading out, and they've kind of left it there. It's just one of those things where like everybody in succession is saying exactly what they don't mean, and just expecting or hoping that what they actually mean will come through. Like, you could say something as simple as, let's do this again. Let's see if it's going to be better. But instead, she like tries like four times with very indirect words to ask, is there anything here that would make you want to continue this relationship? And he's just like, oh, what do you say? Like, I loved that he was like making it difficult, like trying to get her to actually say the words, because no one ever does that in succession. And I think that because she didn't know what she, well, she knew what she wanted, but wasn't trying to say it. She wasn't really trying to kind of disparage Tom too much. However, she wanted to make herself look better than him.
Hmm.
However, I don't know why she would want to do that, because in
I
her mind, she did not see Tom as a plausible option. Because again,
Yeah.
so overconfident that she genuinely thought that that she was the only possible option for Matson, didn't not realizing that she was suffocating him with
Yeah,
like,
that part,
yeah,
100%. But I don't know if I agree that she was like that. Was trying to deride Tom because of competition. I read that she was trying to play both sides. Like she didn't want to pitch Tom too much in case Martin hated Tom, but she also didn't want to seem like a bitch that's
yeah. No, I'm not saying it's
killing off her
because
husband.
I'm not trying to say it's because of competition. I'm saying that it's something. I'm basically saying, the whole both sides thing. It's like what she
Hmm.
did at the election party in their house. She was insulting him all over the place, trying to quote unquote look a certain way,
Yeah.
whereas believing that he would be fine, not thinking about the actual emotional turmoil it would create for him.
So I think that during the election, she was both sides in it, but more on the negative side. And here she was both sides in it, but more on the positive side.
Okay, I can see that. That
Like
makes
I think
sense.
if Tom listened to what she said in this scene, he wouldn't have been angry. Does that make sense? Like he would have been like, "Oh, okay, she's kind of... anyway." Um,
But is
so
that because of what she's saying at face value, or because he's mentally like done slash desensitized to
no,
all
I,
of?
I I don't think what she's saying at face value is that bad. Like obviously it's bad for us as normal people, but I think for
Okay.
Roy, I don't think it's that bad. Like I think she's
Okay.
hedging her bets 100%. But I think when she does go for him, she's like we just said, she is pitching him. She's saying good things, things that Martin wants to hear. She doesn't know that she thinks she's pitching him for head of ATA. She doesn't know he's pitching for head of I'm sorry CEO. So anyway, so Tom and Shiv on the plane. Let me just read out some of the quotes from that scene. So Shiv says it would be incredibly convenient if they go back together. And then Tom says, it would be incredibly convenient because you'll be married to your husband, which made me laugh. And then he says, Shiv, you're falling in love finally. You're falling in love with our scheduling. You don't like to fail a test, do you? And then Shiv asks him, are you interested in a real relationship? And then he says, honest to God, I don't know. I just don't know. Can I say this? I really can't wait for Sarah Snook to do a role that I can put all my weight behind, right? All my, like, you know that emoji, the crying face emoji, not the crying, like the awe emoji, AWW emoji, like the face
Yes.
is welling up. That I can
Yes.
put that because I can't put that for Shiv Roy because Shiv Roy is too problematic. I need a role that is just like I can just put awe
You can
against
actually invest in the
yeah,
emotional integrity of her
because
character.
yes, because I was like, when she's trying to beg for Tom's love in this scene, I'm just like, I feel so bad. I'm just like, oh, but also it's also Shiv Roy, so I can't really put everything behind it because she's kind of a terrible person. Anyway, um, do you want to talk about this scene or can we just move on? I think we've kind of already touched on it a bit. Talk about like her
Yeah.
rejecting, sorry,
One
Tom
thing I want
rejecting
to
her love.
say. Yeah. Didn't she say something along the lines of, once you've said and done the worst thing, you're free?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't write that down, but she did. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really it, isn't it? I think that actually
Hmm.
plays a big role in what happens at the end of the episode. But I think it's cool that
Oh
they had
yeah.
us kind of thinking about that right at the beginning, because for Shiv, that whole thing applied in two contexts, and because of everything going on in her head with Tom, and all the processing that happens, cheers to the human brain. It then welled up to the surface at that very critical moment that we'll
Hmm.
talk about in a bit.
I mean, it's
So,
bullshit though.
well, I mean, that's the thing. It's nonsense at the beginning and it's disingenuous, but then it becomes very real.
Yeah, but I still think as a guiding principle of life, it's bullshit. Like there is always something worse to say and do, no
Oh
matter
yes, of course, yeah,
like
definitely.
we'll talk on it. But I don't think they're gonna about to have like a happily married life. But we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so Lucas and Tom. Um,
Yeah, not him being forced into an interview. My goodness.
a
Like
third,
what?
a third Hank, a third vibes check, and then I only caught this the second time. But Tom is like in the art gallery, whatever. He's like more Hank, more fucking Hank than the dictator's birthday party. I was like, sure.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
Speaking of the interview, Martin basically tells Tom to pitch himself. And again, I wrote this down because Jesse Armstrong's pen was going up. And you know what? I was like, I feel seen. I was like, yes, Tom wants guns. You are talking about me. So he says, I'm a grinder. I grind because I worry. I worry all night about
Shh.
everything. Okay, we do apologize if you just heard that. That was quite. We couldn't act like that didn't happen. So he says, I'm a grinder. I grind because I worry. I worry all night about everything. All the threats to me, my division, and my physical body. I have an excess of vigilance and I have a high tolerance for pain and physical discomfort. And I was like, yes, thank you. Someone sees me, my people. Oh my God.
This is your tribe.
This
Really?
is my tribe. This is my tribe. I have a high tolerance. Well, I have a low tolerance of pain, but I do have a high tolerance for physical discomfort. Anyway, but anyway,
Interesting.
so that is Tom pitching himself, which again is what Martin wants to hear. And then Martin comes clean to Tom and says basically he doesn't want Shiv in the picture, and his reasons are: one, she's too much; two, she's pushy on tactics, which is a bullshit statement. I'm sorry, like
He
it's not like
just doesn't like to be challenged by women.
yeah,
We've
oh,
actually
100%.
it's been established about him. So
Yeah,
that's what
like
he means by pushy on tactics, as in she has an opinion. She's a woman with an opinion.
and it's have been one thing if the opinion was wrong, but the opinions worked out. Like it's just like you don't
Yeah.
want the
It's
right
not like she
opinion.
hasn't, helped
Uh,
you get to this point that you are.
and then he says
Gee, Lucas.
he has his own ideas. He doesn't need more ideas, which is fair enough. He's like
Still though, it's like, yeah, I have a lot of ideas. Like it's an idea factory. I don't know. He's
he's
such
like
a weird.
he's
And then
like
he's
I have
like,
enough ideas for my. I don't want more. That's so funny. I'm sorry. I didn't laugh like this when I first heard it. But just thinking about it.
he, bro, like no, because he also says, because what kind of clinches is like, like I kind like he's like he kind of wants to sleep with her,
Oh yeah, I wrote that. That was the
and
most important thing. Like he
that's the
likes
thing.
her. He's talking to her.
And that's the thing. I wasn't sure if that was I like at face value at that moment. I was like, okay, well, I kind of like her. I don't know if that was him saying, well, if you come on board, if I bring you on board, you're gonna have to
Mm,
be okay with the idea of me getting together with her. But
mm-hmm.
now I wonder if that was more like I really like her, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to kind of like deal with that in this setting. Like I don't want to mix potential
Oh,
pleasure with
it's that
business.
he says it.
Yeah,
He says it's too messy.
yeah,
So
it's a
he's
lot.
he's. I mean, look, it's perfect. It's perfect, right? Because he's punishing her for his attraction to her. It's like what did they say? They say, oh, girls shouldn't wear skirts because the male teachers cannot control themselves.
Yeah,
Like you're punishing the girls because the
which
male
is, I
people
mean,
cannot
obviously
control
the
themselves.
holy grail of idiotic statements that we've heard in our
Uh,
lives.
but that's
Um,
what yeah, exactly, and that's what
no,
he's doing here.
it
Like
is what he's doing.
he's punishing her because he can. I'm just like, wow. I'm like, wow. Um. Anyway, but yeah, he's punishing her because he's attracted to her, and then I mean, it's very interesting that she loses this mainly because she's a woman, right? An attractive woman, and not for the reason I think many of us thought. Like many of us thought that like her pregnancy, they were like, oh, we can't have a woman that's pregnant and we don't know where she's gonna be when she gives birth or whatever. And I'm sure that plays some part, but that's not the reason. Like it's do you get it? Like we thought that was gonna be, oh, she's pregnant, so she can't be the person. But it was more like just because she's a woman and I'm attracted to her and I don't want anyone around me that I want to sleep with because
Yeah,
I've already had
well,
this thing with Eba.
maybe yeah, that's him actually learning from Ebba, which is not something I thought him capable of.
Learning. I mean,
Um,
he's learning the wrong lessons, but okay.
yes, he is learning the wrong lessons. It's because at the end of that whole thing, Tom is like kind of panicking. He's like he's muttering to himself everything, and I thought that was him reacting to, oh my god, this guy is actually trying to like he's trying to control me and take my wife. But then I realized this is him. Like that wasn't him reacting to that at all. He was just reacting to, oh my god, it's me. Oh my
Yeah,
god,
it
it's
was
me.
like,
Like that's
wow.
what that was.
Hmm.
It's like it's like wow, I'm actually here. Like I was meant and because him being mentored by Logan the way he was beginning of this season, that has actually ended up working out for him. Like he spent the whole
True.
season worried about where he'll end up, and he ended up exactly not even exactly where he thought he'd end up. He'd ended up way better than he thought he'd end
Has
up.
he basically had the same arc back to back seasons, but just like on a different level? Because season three, he worried about going to jail, and next thing you know, he's Logan's right hand man. It's just like it's the same arc, but like a step more or a step, no, more than a
Yeah, he
step, but
was
like
he was at zero, and then he ended up at 100, and now he
mm-hmm.
was at 100, and he thought he
Ended
was
up
going
at
to end up at
300,
zero,
five
but he
hundred.
ends up at
Yeah.
300. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, and then he says to, I only wrote this down because it sounded so similar to what Kendall told Hugo. So Martin tells Tom, I'm not looking for a partner, I'm looking for a front man. I need a paint sponge when I'm under the hood. A paint sponge. Um, then,
literally.
oh
That's
yeah, and it kind of calls the kids a love sponge, doesn't he, earlier in the season?
yeah. He says that they're leaky love sponges,
Mm-hmm.
and that that he himself has learned to live without love, and that's how he's survived. But I don't know. Tom is actually a very loving person, which is why I wonder how he will react to all of this. That's going like in the future, I guess, like with what's coming with this job, with his child, all that stuff. Like, what's going to be the case? Like,
Mm,
how is he going to handle it? Like, what is it going to be like when somebody is running with Star record that actually has some form of like empathy? You know,
that's giving Tom enough credit, man. I feel like we're always seeing Tom at
I mean,
work.
he is he. I mean, he's. I'm not saying he's the greatest person in the world, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying that like he has some level of like he's a person who desires love, whereas the Roys are people who, even though they desire love, they don't know they wouldn't know it if it hit them in the face
yeah,
because they're actually constantly running from it. They deflect it. Whereas Tom actually just wants something real, something sincere. Of course, now
yeah.
he's
But
at the point where he doesn't know anymore. But
I don't know if
yeah,
he needs that at work. I feel like he might know how to compartmentalize because we've not seen Tom be emotionally sensible at work. Like he had somebody as a footstool.
well, that is true.
Yeah. Anyway,
That is true.
so then something happens for the first time, probably ever. Tom hides something from Greg, and that was important because if Tom didn't hide it from Greg, then this finale ends in 5 minutes. So he hides the fact that he might be CEO from Greg. He makes Greg feel like he's gonna like lose his job. So what does Greg do when he finds out that Martin is planning on fucking Shiv? He does the only thing that a Greg would do. Um,
He's trying to save himself.
yeah, which leads us to Barbados. Let's talk about Barbados. So there's a lot of shouting at Caroline's when Kendall arrives.
He's like,
Um,
yeah, I'm just trying to talk just a little, and then he walks in guns blazing. He's like, bro, you just got here.
Rowley.
Can you chill?
And then in the middle of so this is for dinner now because Caroline basically guilt trips him, I think, to staying. Um, in the middle of a care homes pitch from Peter and Peter's friend Jonathan. We'll talk about that pitch. Do you want to talk about it? Let's just talk about it now because that's just such slime people, such slime men.
I could not believe it. I was like, I cannot believe what I'm hearing right now. What in this
So,
place at this moment?
so if you guys remember, Peter is involved in some care homes, like terrible stuff. Like I think he basically remodels care homes to like the bare minimum, so he saves costs on care homes, which is it might be the worst person on the show, maybe. um, so during the pitch, Jonathan is Peter's friend, tells the kids, we are going to be skating really close to the wind, but I'm sure that no one in layman terms can get us on this. Meaning they're going to be doing illegal things with care homes. And then to wrap it all off, do you know what Peter says? Let me write what Peter says. Our facilities of the care home won't offer all that you've dreamt of in a fancy care home, but to afford what I'll call basic level care. Not what one would expect for like oneself, you know. They aren't going to offer all the bells and whistles you've dreamt of. And then Kendall comes in to interrupt. This is a terrible man. I'm sorry. Like, what is he doing? It's a terrible man.
Perfect for Caroline. Like yeah, when you listen to the things he says, when you
He's a
really listen to
terrible
him,
man.
you kind of understand how like he'd be comfortable with someone like her because
Is
even
it?
when they're leaving, he's like, that
Yeah,
was a
like,
waste of time.
yeah.
And it's because like he doesn't care about, he pretends to be a bumbling person, but like, I mean, he is kind of
It's
bumbling
kind
like
of
in his
bumbling,
own
but
right.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, he's pretty callous.
So will afford what I will call basic level care. Anyway, so Kendall gets a call from Greg during this pitch, and Greg obviously tells him the information that Martin is planning on fucking Shiv. Then Kendall tells Shiv and Roman, which leads to an incredible series of scenes and conversations, which obviously I can't recount beat by beat, but it all culminates in the meal fit for a king. Let's talk about that section up to the meal fit for a king.
Would you like to start with the cheese licking or the spit in the blender?
I would like to end with that scene, and let's just start because I actually really do like that scene, and we'll get to it. But let's talk about the conversations that happened before. So over a series of conversations, Kendall basically convinces both Roman and Shiv that it should be him. And Shiv and Roman talk about it.
Miraculously.
Yeah, Shiv and Roman talk about it, even though they don't particularly love the idea that it probably makes more sense for him for it to be Kendall. Um, I don't know. Do you want to talk about that? We don't have to because it kind of straightforward. But do you want to talk about those interactions?
I mean, which part do you have in mind?
Just everything. I just really like. To me, that's a written scene. Like that's a scene that the writer is writing, and it's like the writer is writing because like there's no score for maybe like I don't know how long those scenes are, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And like I said, there's no real thing to talk about. It's just I just like the progression of the plot, lack of a better term, but just how they finally get on board and how Kendall kind of pitches himself and like it's like yeah, like really, I honestly, if I'm being honest, like Kendall is the only one that can actually be CEO. He's the only one that has
Among them, you
yeah,
mean?
among them obviously. There's no one that has like the actual experience or the bona fides or anything. Like it can't really be anyone else. And like it was interesting to see them kind of finally make that realization. Obviously, we'll talk about Shiv's
Well, I
actions
mean, they
later.
came to that realization under duress. I would like to
Mm,
talk about it in the sense that there was they had to they were forced into a situation where they had to see that there was nothing left for them. For
hmm
example, Roman claims to have been in a very violent fight, which he won. Okay, bro, but then he. I no, I mean I just think it's funny that life happens to him once and now he sees there's more to life than bickering and he runs to
hmm
his mother. That's just very funny. But Shiv, realizes how much she's overplayed her hand. I'm just looking at that PDF and seeing XXX was just
I don't.
crazy.
I don't want to.
That
I
was
don't want to be the
crazy.
person in the Shiv corner, but like, I feel like, yeah, you're right. You overplayed her hard, but that might also be quite harsh because Martin was just a dick. Like,
I mean, yeah, he
Martin was just
was.
an asshole.
He no for 100%. Like two things can be true at the same time
True, true. That's true.
because
That's true.
she wasn't watching her back the way she should have. There was no reason for her to trust Matson the way she did.
That's
Like
very
no
true.
other person in the family would have trusted him like that. Logan wouldn't have. Kendall and Roman wouldn't have. I'm pretty sure Connor wouldn't. Well, I don't know actually about that one, but most of
Mm,
them wouldn't have trusted Matson the way Shiv did so easily because she
mm,
thought she was the one controlling him. That comes from overconfidence in a way, right? But once that happens and she's forced to really see reality, and Roman is also in a point where like he does still have a voice, but it's not the loudest one in the room, saying,
mm,
yeah, in episode 2, when you guys were not around, Dad said it should be me. And Shiv actually
mm.
asked the question, like, okay, what else did he say when no one was around? Which is honestly a very
Yeah, he,
fair
he,
thing
he
to
did
ask.
two
It's so
back.
sad. Like, it's so sad that she would
Is
ask
it,
that, but
is it his Zodiac killer?
literally, like,
I'm sorry,
you
guys. I
know,
think Shiv is the funniest sibling. I do think Shiv is the funniest sibling. I'm sorry.
you've always thought that.
No, I don't think. but like this episode, like I think she's funnier than anyone else in this episode. Like, it's actually funny. Like when she shouts "Rome," guess who Kendall thinks? You wouldn't believe who Kendall thinks should be CEO.
Yeah,
I was like,
that was pretty great.
she was really funny as sibling. Quickly though, I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it, but I guess maybe we just due diligence. Speaking of Shiv controlling Martin, that cartoon, do you think it had an effect? I actually do believe him that it didn't, but what do you think?
I when I saw it and realized what it was, I felt like it did.
Oh, when
But
I
then
saw that, I immediately thought about the pilot,
yeah,
like how the Forbes magazine affect. We know it doesn't change Logan's mind, but we know it's part of the things that affects Logan's decision. So I was like, oh, are we going to have another like magazine article like influence CEO choices?
yeah. I mean, Matson is a very arrogant dude, right?
Mm.
So I feel like I do feel it had an effect on him. I think him saying it didn't have an effect was just to placate her. I genuinely think that
But
I
he's
don't think
also
it I don't think it
someone,
changed his mind or made him feel
yeah,
any feel like I think it's something that maybe solidified thoughts he was already having.
yeah, because he's
Because
also someone
he
like
cares about not
Elon.
looking dumb.
True, but I think he's also someone like Elon Musk who would want to like prove to everyone that he's in on the joke, like he can take the ribbon. So he wouldn't want to act. Do you get what
Like
I mean?
Kendall.
Like Kendall, yeah, yeah, actually like Kendall, yeah. But like he wouldn't want to seem like he's acting based off a joke that he couldn't take the jokes and now he's acting out. Anyways, but that's by the way. I think whether it affects or not, I think he's going to make a decision whichever way.
What do you think of them discussing like should we kill him?
Well, well, I want to believe that they were joking. I want to believe that it was all a joke.
The way that scene felt, I started to take them seriously just a
Oh
little
my
bit.
god! I'm sorry. When Shiv is like, "If we do kill him, we get to sleep," and I'm very tired. Again, first of
Yes.
all, very funny. Second of all, I felt seen. I was like, look, Shiv might actually be the funniest.
Honestly, like it really worked because obviously Kendall is inside water again. It's just a thing,
Mhm,
Kendall and
mhm.
water throughout the show.
When I saw him by the pool, I
Um,
was like, we cannot be doing candle on water now. This is too much. This is actually too
yeah,
much.
yeah, I was like, literally, like if this was a different show, he would have like he would have swum into that water and then they just wouldn't have found him. Like he's like, and then his body just floats to the surface later. Like, and it's like now,
Yeah,
what are they gonna do if Kendall actually like dies? Like,
season 5. Um,
oh my goodness.
so let's talk about the meal fit for a king. We're not gonna go through the ingredients one by one because I want everyone listening to keep their food inside their body. Um, well, I had to
You're
check the
welcome.
time. I had to check the time during the scene because it was things were going too well, and I was like, I know the show we're watching. I know the show that these guys are making because so I checked and it was like 45 minutes left. I don't like to do that.
Basically the exact halfway point.
Yeah, I don't
The
like to do
exact
that
halfway point is
because
around 44 minutes. Yeah,
I like to like let the show surprise you. I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was going to end there. Or, oh, we still have this long to go. So I don't like to check. But then
same.
I was like, this is going too well. So I checked. I was like, oh yeah, we're in trouble because there's no way. Like the only way these guys can be happy at the end of the show is if they are happy 1 minute to the end of the show. So I was like, if we have 5 minutes left, then there is no way this show is ending like this. So and even on rewatch, that scene is so good. That scene is
It's really great, especially
so
when like
heartwarming.
the mother shows up, talks to them, scolds them a little bit, smiles at them, and then she goes away. Even makes a joke about how she's not a good mother.
Yeah,
It's like, don't eat the cheese, please. Here's some.
just this
Here's
cheese
back of bread
knobs.
that I've frozen. What?
Hey, baby, as someone who went to Loyola, is back of bread a real slice?
Yes,
Okay,
100%. I still eat it. Come
fair
for me
enough.
if you want.
Yeah, and then you just see that these guys were all children, like they're just siblings. Like these, like when they start mimicking their mom in the British accent, I was like, oh, you guys probably did that as children, didn't you? Like you probably did this, and I was just like, oh, this you're actually. I really like that scene. There's a point when, which I have to feel like was an improv or was like wasn't meant to be in in the show, but then the editors and directors and whatever Jesse saw it and was like, we have to put it in. It was when Roman throws three slices at Shiv, and she
Uh huh.
catches all three, and then you hear Roman kind of say, "How did you catch all three?" Something like that, and then there's a look that Sarah Snook has. Which is like, I was like, that's not Shiv. I feel like that's Sarah Snook. I don't know what to expect. People have to go back and watch that
No, no,
particular
I
shot
get
to
you.
get.
I
I
know
was
what you're
like,
talking about. Yeah.
and I was just like, oh, these guys are. I was like, these guys are so happy.
Yeah, the portrayal was really good because like their happiness was already like as a viewer, their happiness was affecting you before you even realize it was affecting you, which is how
from
you
the
know they're doing
from
it
the
right.
water when they anoint
Yes,
him, and they're like, and she's like, smile, bitch, or whatever. And I was like,
like
oh,
let's celebrate,
this is not going well.
and then they pour the thing over the head. Like those smiles and laughs were it just felt so
So
genuine. It was really nice.
so genuine. I mean, that's how in tune these
I was like,
guys are with their
this is so
characters.
wholesome. This is too wholesome. Which is
Too
then followed
wholesome.
up by them watching that video of Logan with the graybeards.
Oh,
Who knew Logan like actually
okay.
hung out with the graybeards?
Let's go there. So it's where the great reallocation, and so I guess now that there are no more episodes of the show, we can assume that this was the flashback scene that Brian Cox was talking about that he shot with Kerry. We thought it was something more sinister. Little did we know that it was just.
Just more wholesomeness.
This was when I was like, this is a great finale because this is incredibly emotional, and some might say too emotional. But I felt like it was working. That's when I was like, oh, this is a great. And I didn't mention this earlier, but the reason I think it's a great finale, because I think it's a great episode of Succession. It's not a different show. It didn't become a different show because it's the series finale. Like Succession has
It
had those moments of intimacy, especially this season. Like we think back to Connor's wedding, or we think back to the funeral last week. Like the moments of intimacy amongst the three, sometimes four children. And I don't know. I can't see if I was to see a critic, maybe a review say, "Oh, this scene is too emotional for Succession and it's too warm." I wouldn't be surprised. I don't agree, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But I don't know. That's when that
but
scene came up. I
such
was
but
like,
hints of such moments have existed in the show from
exactly,
time. You
exactly.
can't say this is different because they wanted to show us these guys seeing their dad being warm, but that's not something he would have really shown them in this day and age. So
Hmm.
to show us them seeing that, they had to see it the way they did on a screen in the past, in the presence of Connor, who's the only person who would have really been there and
Exactly,
had access.
exactly.
I
Like
told I told you guys last week, Connor had importance.
Connor being there, Connor
Like
being the.
Connor, he's the one child that Logan actually like could really stomach on
But
some level.
he's also the one child that Logan did not spend the most time with and was probably disappointed with,
They could,
but from
I
an
mean, but there
early
could have been
age.
guilt there. He's like, okay, there
Mm,
is guilt here in how that happened.
hmm.
So I'm going to see you. Like it's one of those things where like I read a quote many years ago that said, you know, um, one thing we all want is to get to an age where we're old enough that our parents become our friends, right?
Mm,
And I think that's something that Connor and Logan kind of achieve on an like kind of like an on and off basis. He's like his son, but kind of his associate, and that's because he's not in competition with him. Like Logan's problem was always that he was in competition with
mm,
his own kids for what he
hmm.
had given them. But Connor wasn't part of that. He wasn't in competition with him in that sense. He just didn't want. He's like he's like, yeah, you can do what you want. Like, oh, I'm thinking about this or that. Like, what are your thoughts? Or can you make this happen for me? Or can you go to this random place and handle this thing?
Hmm.
Like, he handled his affairs on some level.
Hmm.
He just didn't just like, yeah, just do all that, but please don't embarrass me. That's all. The one time he scolded Connor in the series was when that whole play thing was happening. He asked for
Yeah, on the
a
boat.
cool 100 million, and he's like, "Please stop this president thing. You are embarrassing me."
It's so funny because, like, in real life, I'm pretty sure it's less than 10 years between Brian Cox and Alan Rock. But obviously, Alan Rock has always looked young. So, like, I mean, I think he was already like 30 during Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, so
Yeah,
he has always looked young. But like, yeah, like those guys are more peers than father and son. But yeah, that scene, that scene, oh my god, that scene is so good. Like,
it's really nice. I mean, him doing like a Logan impression in front of Logan, and Logan smiling. Jerry being present, Frank and Carl actually saying, Carl
him and
singing, Kerry holding him.
Kerry
I
and
was like, what is
Logan.
going on? Like,
Which is what I'm trying to say. Like, I can see the argument that people are like, "Oh, this is like what something you put in a finale just to make it seem emotional or whatever." Again, I don't agree, and I fully buy it. Where you come like, "Oh, this is
yeah,
way
no,
too
this fully
warm for
belonged
this
here.
show." But yeah, like we've never seen him and Kerry like, yeah, him and Kerry like sharing that
And
moment is
actually,
like
and speaking of human character, that's something I said out loud. I was like, wow. So when the graybeards, it's so crazy how I really call them the
the
graybeards now. But
Greybeards.
when the when the graybeards, for anybody who doesn't follow that, actually, I mean Frank and Carl and
Frank.
somewhat Jerry, um,
Hmm.
when they're talking about, oh, like is or is not something happening with Kerry and Logan, oh, like, oh, I don't want to say anything, da 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 da. Like
They
this
know.
whole time we've been thinking they're speculating, but they fully know. They
They
hang
know.
out with them, like
Hmm.
they have like all these cute dinners at his place. Like these were his actual like they were his circle. Like whenever he called them inner circle, I thought it was just business
Oh, those were
sometimes,
his
but
best
they were
friends.
really his friends. Those were his
I mean,
friends,
his real best
especially
friend is not
Frank.
there, but yeah, I mean, he's not Frank for what, 50, 40 years?
At least 40 years,
Yeah.
yeah. It's sad that Ewan couldn't be there. I feel like that's the thing
Let's
that would have
let's
made
calm
it
down.
not
Let's
not
calm down.
believable. No, I know that's what I'm saying.
I
Like
think if Ewan
if
was
Ewan
there,
was there, that's when
oh
it would have now been implausible.
yeah, I was like, okay, let's behave ourselves here. Let's behave
Yeah,
ourselves here.
yeah. But the people who were there, it made sense for them to need to
Hmm.
be there. I just
Yeah.
wonder who was filming.
I do. I was wondering that. I mean, the option it can't be colored.
Maybe one of the servants.
Maybe no, no, because that person was seated. So I'm thinking
Exactly. That's why I want. I mean, the person
Willa.
would have.
Maybe
Yeah.
Willa.
Yeah. Actually, true. Maybe Willa. That's
Although you'd
good.
expect Willa to be beside him, but maybe Willa. Beside
Yeah,
Connor.
because yeah, but she probably would have gone to a because the camera moved a bit, like it was like
Yeah.
panning and stuff. So she probably got to a place where she could really see what was going on because Connor was doing an act, so it would have made sense that she would have gone to the other side of
Yeah.
the table to
But then
actually fully
obviously
see
I
that,
think Logan was kind of saying all the losers of of American elections. It seemed
which
like
is
from
very impressive,
time.
by the way.
Yeah, it seemed
That
like
was
that was from like from the first election, like up
yeah. That's
to
everybody who has lost an
I think
election.
up to
That's that.
2000. I don't think
It,
he did
it
after
takes a lot
2000.
to know that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because it's not just I mean anybody could master the names of like everybody who's been president of the country, but everybody
Yeah.
who's lost, that's the names who have been quote unquote forgotten, lost to history.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting
anyway,
because
yeah,
and
go ahead.
one thing about that I thought was interesting and sort of speaks to the way things work in the show in terms of people trying and trying and trying again. A lot of those names, those are people who were actually president, which goes to show you that a lot of
Hmm.
people who became president of the U.S. didn't do it on their first try. They've
Don't
actually lost before.
don't let Nigerians hear you, please. Don't let Atiku hear you, please. I beg. We've already had one or two of those.
Oh
We don't need more.
God. I mean, even the current president, this is what his
Yeah,
fourth try.
yeah. Let's not
Let's
encourage
not
any
do
more
it.
of those people. Anyway, so my reading of this is that Tom's greed gets in the way because him saying, "Well, maybe you should vote it through." If it's also it's so stupid. Like Tom, are you stupid? Why would you say that?
Ridiculous.
Um, and then obviously he says, "Tell Shiv, yeah, it's me." Whatever. The music that drop for Shiv comes in, um, and
I
then
have thoughts on
Tom.
that music.
Okay,
It's
say it.
really good.
Say
No,
it.
it's
But
just
oh, just
good.
really
Like
good. Fair enough. Yeah.
because like it's. I feel like it's been sort of like an undertone this season. Like throughout the
Mm,
season, very very pivotal moments or like rousing moments have had it. It's kind of like a new arrangement. This finale had a lot of interesting arrangements of the main theme, but this
mm.
particular score I'm talking about, like if I think we first heard it when Logan was making his speech in episode 2, the Were Pirates speech.
Oh,
Love it.
okay.
That's when it first came.
Mm.
Then
Did
we
Kendall
heard
get
it
it last week?
yeah, Kendall. And
Yeah.
no, well, that wasn't even his first time. He got it again,
Oh.
I think, when he blackmailed Hugo in episode 4.
Oh, okay.
At the
Okay.
very end of the episode, that was now the closing song for that episode. Then when he secured Hugo at the funeral, the woof woof moment,
Mm-hmm,
it
mm-hmm,
comes on, and then when Shiv finds out about Tom, and then walks up and says to her brothers, "It's Tom," and
mm-hmm,
then they're like, "Okay, battle stations." It comes on again.
mm-hmm.
So there's clearly a theme there, and I'm looking for. I mean, this anybody who knows me as I say this, you just hear it and be like, of course. But I do listen to the Succession music. Like it's just a thing that I listen to sometimes because I just think
Mm-hmm.
it's that good. Actually, one of the songs from like one of the tracks from episode 2 is like in my wrapped thing. It's like my second most listened song because I just had it playing like in the background all the time.
Fair enough.
It's just nice. But I think that like that song is going to have an interesting name. I'd be curious to see what that track is
I
called
think the album's
because
out now.
oh thank God
I think
because
the
usually it
album's
takes a
out.
while.
Mm. So they all go to the Waystar Worker offices for the vote, and then Kendall and Roman share a scene. What did you make of this scene? Because I have a reading, but I don't know if my reading is too far off.
I mean, I'd like to hear a reading because I think that was Roman kind of. I think it takes him a little while to process things generally,
Mm.
and they said what they said the previous nights as to let's give it to him and all that, let's crown you and stuff. But then he starts to really mourn the fact that it's not him, that maybe he failed again. But I think that's also a product of him missing Logan because he just wanted to
And
do
Jerry.
what his father wanted, and Jerry as well. He's saying, "Oh, why is she here? I don't want to see her, and then I need to leave." It's like, okay, relax. No one cares about that. Just do what you came here to do. But then they talk, and like it's part him encouraging Roman and him telling Roman like know your place and do what you need to do. And I think that mix was equal parts sinister and equal parts wholesome somehow. because then that hug happens. That
Mm-hmm.
hug where he said, because I thought it was like he needed an excuse to leave. He's like, oh, this stitching is actually very good. Like, I got in the fight and like it's not going to really show. And like, I'm going to be here. And like, it looks kind of stupid. Like, it's not even bleeding enough. And then he hugs him such that the wound opens. And I'm like, what is happening here right now? And then I thought, okay, what if this is him like trying to open that wound so Roman has an excuse to leave and he doesn't have to be here? But then we saw him at the board meeting anyway. So I just wonder what all of that was like. Was that a show of force, a show of
Yeah.
power, a show of
So.
intimidation? Is that another continuation from their childhood? Like we
Mm-hmm.
saw the wholesome childhood callback. Is
Mm-hmm.
this now the less wholesome childhood callback?
Mm-hmm. So, first of all, I want to apologize to all our listeners because you probably come to this podcast expecting like answers, and then we're just kind of working through our own shit on the podcast, and you have to listen to that. But yeah, we're like, look, we are not any smarter than you guys. So my reading of that scene was basically the same as yours, but in a darker direction. Because the way I read it was like, first of all, he sees Jerry, and he's kind of maybe first of all he doesn't want to see Jerry, but he's kind of ashamed by the look, the injury, the scars, the stitching, whatever. And he's like, I don't want to see. I don't want to see me. I'm going to call into the meeting. And then God, again, working through. I'm trying to make sense because I'm thinking that he is kind of like, why can't it be me? Like this stitching is not even that bad. Like face value, I present as a CEO. Like I'm fine. Why can't it be me? And so he's almost like he's using that stitching as the reason why he's not CEO. Right? He's using that as as an excuse. It's not. I'm sure he knows it's not, but like in that moment, he's using it as the excuse of this stitching is fine. It can be me. Like he's almost like if I didn't have this stitching, I'll be fit enough to be CEO. If I didn't have this blemish, if I didn't have this mark on me, I'll be good. The difference between me and Kendall is that Kendall doesn't have this mark on him. And then my interpretation of that of the hug was now then that Kendall hugs him. One, because it felt like Kendall was making sure his the stitching was got to Kendall's shoulder, like he placed it perfectly right. So I felt like one, he wanted to open the stitching to kind of be like, look, as in literally look, you're not fit enough. Like you don't look like your stitching is bleeding. This is not how a CEO looks,
Hmm.
right?
Interesting.
So almost to make Roman feel like, oh yes, I don't look the part of the CEO. But then also the other hand, I think it was physical abuse, right? It was physical abuse.
Yeah, that's
It
what I meant. Like a
was
show of force,
yeah.
intimidation from
It was
yeah,
back to what you said. A condition of their childhood. It was putting Roman in the cage. It
in a
was
vice. Yeah, that cage
yeah.
is what I was thinking of
Yeah, because
with
he
the dog
holds him
food.
there. He holds him there to make sure that stuff starts bleeding. Like, and
Hmm.
I think it's not the final moment, but I think it's probably the penultimate step in Kendall's journey of becoming Logan. Like that is physical abuse from his brother to a goal to
And we
arrive
know
at
that he
it.
did protect him from the physical abuse that he may have received from Logan.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
Kendall, in a lot of ways, is kind of Logan. I mean, Logan is his middle name, right? That's not an accident. I
mm-hmm.
think last episode, first of all, Jess leaving was the
Mm-hmm.
last wall breaking that was separating
Was
him and his
his
humanity.
last tether to
Like
any form of
that's it.
humanity. Mm-hmm.
And that speech, I mean, Shiv called it a coronation demolition derby, but that was him th- taking the throne in a way. Like that
Mm-hmm.
speech was, in a sense, his coronation. Like
Mm-hmm.
he really presented himself. Like look at the guy who walks into that funeral, and look at the guy who's shaking everybody's hand as
Different.
people are leaving.
Different. Even
Very
like
different people.
even for Roman, compare the entrance and the end, the beginning and the end of the episode.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
way he handled not having the vote at the beginning of this finale and going over there to look for Roman and talking to Telly the way he did, asking the questions he was asking, like he was processing things in a almost uncharacteristically pragmatic way. Like it's a way
Mm-hmm.
that we know is him, but a way we just haven't got a chance to see. Of course, it starts to get to his head a bit. You know, right before he does the hug with Roman, he's sitting at his father's chair. And I remember asking myself earlier in the episode, why are they still using their own offices? Like nobody's going into Logan's office yet. That's interesting. But now they're in Logan's
It's only
office.
been like
He get
4 days.
I know exactly. But now
Hmm.
he sits there and then his legs are up and then he's talking, he's doing what he's doing to look. I think actually to Roman, I think that actually is is the start of when Shiv is like,
Oh,
I
me
don't know if I want
too.
to do this. I
Me
think,
too. I was gonna
yeah,
ask you this.
I think
Let's
that's
save
when
it.
she starts to think she's not able to stomach it. Like she's watching him live his quote unquote first day, and she's
Yeah.
seeing what's happening.
And what
And
does he say
I
to
mean,
Stewie? You're
we'll get into it
something
in a
just likes to
second.
get his dick sucked or something, and she's like,
Yeah, like you
is
can
this
see
where I
her
want to
reactions.
be?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
plus
Me too.
knowing that they could end up sidelining her, right? Like
Yes.
so, all of that put together, and what he then does to Roman to kind of just establish that control, is showing that like Kendall has kind of become Logan. Like we might as well
Mm-hmm.
call him Logan Kendall Roy now. So
Okay.
it's
Uh,
yeah, it's I think it's well written, to be
yeah,
honest.
just because to go back to that scene quickly, because the reason I had problem even deciphering it was because I was like, Roman is not reacting, which obviously makes sense as someone who probably lived through the abuse as a child. Like on one hand, he's saying like "fuck you," he's saying like "I'll stop," but on the other hand, he's not reacting in a way that like should someone who's just like, do you get what I mean? Like if my mate or my brother just hit me or whatever, I would react in a particular way. But I was like, oh, that actually does make sense. And then once Roman leaves, I think this is great from Mark Mylod. The next shot is of Logan's empty chair. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, this that has to be it. Because Logan's empty chair, then like pictures of Logan's Scott
Stuff from
statue
The
or whatever.
Office, things that we
Yeah.
saw the first time they showed us The Office
Mhm.
in that initial season.
So I was like, oh, okay. That just has to mean that like that was the basically the ghost of Logan in Kendall making him do that thing. So my reading of that scene is that it was physical abuse on Roman to put things to cut things short.
Yeah, to control him in a sense. Yeah, it's that darkness, and I think Shiv sensed it on some level. Like I know we need kind of like an explanation still as to all the reasons she did what she did. I mean, I'm getting asked questions, and these are fair questions. Things like, why do like, and I said this earlier, why do writers feel the need to like shock us? Like it is fine to have like something that people are expecting as the end. I think people are starting to wonder like, why is everybody just trying to show that they're smarter than the audience? But I don't think this is, I don't really think this is that. I get where people are coming from if they're saying that, but I don't think this is
How would
that.
that work? You would no, I don't think I agree with that. Because what you would in this case, what they mean? They mean like somebody, one of the kids becoming CEOs.
Either, yeah, that or like,
But that's completely
none of
against what
or none of them becoming CEO,
yeah.
but for some other reason as to what Shiv did. For example, like I know, and this is a thing that we definitely have to get into. We'll do
Hmm.
it a little bit today, and we'll do it like in the kind of like in the exit survey
Follow-up
episode
episode.
that we're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
do. But it's like, why would she choose what she did? On some level, her not voting Kendall hurts her, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
yes, I mean, I have a whole thing on this, I guess, but like choosing Tom is one thing for her. Choosing Kendall is another.
Mm-hmm.
By choosing Matson, she's choosing Tom. But choosing Tom is not so great on some level because Tom is very replaceable. Kendall is not that replaceable once he's there, if he's there. But Tom's replaceability is actually one of his selling points to Matson. So
Mm-hmm.
Matson could actually replace him tomorrow, depending on what's happening. Like it's been well established, even multiple times in this episode alone, that Matson is a dick who will just like screw people over.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thing that happens. So why would she then do that? But I mean, of course, I'd like to know your own thoughts on as to why she's thinking what she's thinking. But I think that was one of the things that made people go like, "Why this feels so random? Does it really make sense for Shiv to do this? Like, shouldn't it have been maybe something else that would have taken away the votes? Like maybe someone else, like I don't know, Stewie being the one to betray them." But I don't think that
Um.
that would have had as much emotional weight. First of all,
Yeah.
and secondly, like a lot of stuff came from her not doing that because not like she said no like in the or yes to Matt in the media right away. She walked away for a bit and they had to
100%.
chart
Yeah.
it. She had to then express everything that she was thinking, all the conflict, and the
Mm-hmm.
conflict, by the way, did continue in that meeting because Kendall said a bunch of things. He was like, Like I said, she thought that he would sideline her again. She saw some signs. He
Mm-hmm.
said that he and Roman secured the deal with Matson, which is not what happened. She secured the deal, and it's not like they don't know it at this point. They know it now. Like the reason they got that big number from Matson was that came after the discussion with Shiv, and he was always going to try and screw them over. But you know, here he is leaving her name out of the narrative, even in the presence of the board. And
Mm-hmm. I
they
didn't even
show her
clock
face
that.
as soon
Yeah.
as he says
Yeah.
what
And
those
then
words. They show her
it
face,
moves, it
and
pans
she's
to
fuming.
Roman. Yeah.
Yeah, she's literally fuming, and she's like, "Do I really want to allow this to happen? Like, I am the one thing standing in the way of this guy becoming a second version of my father who's actually kind of discount. Like he's not even the full version. He's not doing things the way it's going to. Like, he probably won't be as good at this job as he thinks he will be. Like a Cersei
Mm-hmm.
Lannister type of thing. So she has to decide like what do I want? Do I want to side with my brother and then kind of just be here, just be present? Because technically she's on the board, she's president of Waystar, sure. Or do I want to secure things for this child that I don't particularly want, in this marriage that I kind of maybe want to save, and just like let it go? Because in the end, this turns into a non-victory, non-defeat for her. She didn't win, but we can definitely say she didn't. Like if anybody lost here, it's definitely Kendall. Roman is at a point where like he's probably going to be least affected by this. He can just continue living his life. He's the one who's happy to just like take the payout and just be
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the weeds. He's basically the guy that we first met in episode 1 of season 1. Right now, when he's
He's
smiling in
just had
that bar,
a weird 2 years.
this might as well have been a fever dream for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he may as well have just like gone to sleep and then woken up and it's like, oh, dad is dead, and like, that's
Mm-hmm.
it. That's all that's changed. Like there's the repercussions for all of this, but I think Shiv was really starting to weigh the cost, and she said it at the end of episode 8. You know, like these things do have consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Like that look on her face, she's like, are you the kind of guy who wants to be on the wrong side of history? Essentially, she has that conversation with him in that in the election episode where they're talking about whether he's a good father, and she said that he was okay, which funny enough is the exact same thing she said about Logan
Yeah.
at the funeral. He could not put a whole
World
of
of a
woman
woman.
together in his
Yeah.
head, but he was kind of okay in the end,
I
and she
think
just
it's
didn't want more of that.
incredibly,
I think.
yeah, I think it's incredibly consistent
Yeah,
that
I think the signs were there.
Shiv does not rate Kendall as a CEO. She has never done that. She has
Yeah,
never, she has never, like, even from season one, when Kendall was doing stuff, she was kind of like insulting his tactics or whatever. Like, Shiv has never thought that Kendall was a good CEO.
hmm
And what does she say in that meeting? She says, "I love you, but I can't stand you," something like that.
I can't stomach you.
I can't stomach you. So I, I don't think she's never like she's Shiv has always been antagonistic against Kendall. I don't think. I mean, look, I think I didn't want it to happen because, like,
Yeah,
oh,
I mean the way it happened was
yeah, you're
shocking for
like,
sure, but it's not
but
implausible.
I was what because obviously I rewatched it and I was like, I could see that she was a lot more contemplative than she should have been before the vote. I was like, second watch, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, this thing has already happened. Like, her decision, whatever. Maybe she had a meeting with Tom or whatever has already happened, and she's thinking this. But I think all the reasons why she shouldn't have said no, or rather, shouldn't have said yes, are the things playing through her mind. That's why she doesn't say no or yes in the boardroom. She walks out. But I think kind of seals his fate when she like. I think there is still room for her to be convinced in that second room. Like, there's a point when Roman is kind of like, let's just come and sign it, and she's like, I don't think you can do a good job, which I don't kind of says I don't believe you, and I think part of it is not true, part of it is true. Like, I think she thinks he can do a good job, but doesn't know a job that she likes. I don't think like he could probably do a decent job.
It feels random.
Yeah, she can admit. No, I think she can admit that he would do a decent job, but it's not a job that she would approve of. If that makes sense, like, okay, yeah, he'll be a fine CEO, but it's not like something that I would like. But I think it's the moment Kendall says that he made up the story about the dead kid that she's like, oh,
Big mistake.
there is no way I'm
That's
supporting you. Like,
yeah.
I
That
think
is
up to then she
that
could have
at
still been
that point.
convinced.
Yeah, she that could have worked, but then as soon as he said it, I was like, why would you do that? First of all, okay, I
I
know
mean,
I
I know why
said
he did it. It's wrong, but I
yeah,
know
yeah.
he thought that, like, if he could say that that's not a real red flag against me, then they would vote
But
for
it's
him. But he
actually
just
so stupid because
yes.
that is just not a believable lie. Like Roman could maybe take it in, but there was no way Shiv was going to go for it because even
Well,
if she does
you,
believe it, then that just makes him look worse.
that's the thing. I think
The
they
fact that
believe
he would
it.
make that up
That's
makes
the
him
thing.
look worse. So I don't know why he would say
Yeah.
that as a matter of helping his case.
So I think
That's
they,
why that's what
I
doesn't make
think they
sense.
believe, I think they believe that he made it up, which is what is worse. They're like, and to me, that's incredibly dark. I'm sorry. Like Kendall making up, kind of lying that he made up the death story.
I guess that
It's
means
so fucking
he's finally
dark.
made peace with it, but that's not the way I would have wanted him to do that.
Yeah, making peace seems like a straight because like to make up that story, to lie that you made up that story and then still not even win is like I've lost, but at what
You've lost it.
cost?
Oh my! Honestly, that's
You didn't even
literally
you didn't
Ned
even
Stark
win.
saying. That's literally like Ned Stark saying, "Yeah, you know, I was plotting to like overthrow Joffrey, da da da
Hundred
da da,"
percent
and then they
actually, yeah,
cut his head off anyway. That's what
yeah,
made Ned Stark's death painful.
100%. Yeah, like I've lost, but at what cost? Um, so I think she believes him. I think she believes that he lied. And like what I think what does Roman say? Was it a play or something? And it makes so much sense that Tom last week would be or 2 weeks ago would be like, is your story about a child a play? Because like these people in his family can use anything as a play. Like they believe that he used the story of a dead child as a tactic, as a ploy. It's an incredible ongo. I think once he does, because even Roman is like, no, bro, fuck that. Like, if I can, I'll go back and change my own vote. Like, what? Like, I think once that happens, there is no
Which he
going back.
basically does, to be honest. Like I think he kind of just needed the backing from Shiv to be like, you know what, this isn't going to work for me because he doesn't care anymore.
Hmm.
He just ended up not caring, and I just thought that was such a bad move from Kendall. Then he starts to shout, and like the fact that they like the directing from Mylord, amazing. The fact that
Hmm.
they showed us people could see them, not just
Yeah,
hear
and hear
them,
them. Yeah,
but
okay, yeah, yeah.
see
See the
like
fight.
they
The
could see
fight. Oh
what's
my
going on
god.
and the physical fight. People are chuckling when they walk out. Like it's just such a joke. Like it's such a confirmation of the whole like we are nothing thing that Roman says,
Hmm.
right?
Oh, bullshit.
Literally, because how do I put this? It's kind of like it's like this whole time, like this entire season has been it's been a series of questions, right? See, and as I think it's been the case with every season. So season one was I guess about like you know the connection like between the family and all that stuff. Season
Hmm.
two, we explore themes of compatibility. Season three, it's more about like culpability, like who can be liable for what in what's in and how much does that affect everyone else. But I think like there's like with season four, there's there's a question of like sincerity, like kind of accepting themselves
Hmm.
and understanding like who they really are and what they are. Logan posed a very important question, or the statement, obviously things um that are going to be remembered in this series forever. I remember when it came out in the trailer, like I was already joking that it was the best line of the season already. I love you, but you
Hmm.
are not serious people.
Hmm.
And in all honesty, like if you really think about it, the rest of the season is them trying to is really just the show trying to show us like are these actually serious people. And I think Roman saying that in that moment is him saying, bro, let it go. Like in the end we are actually not serious people. The fact that all of this is happening the way it is and lives are just going to go on and we can even get to this point where like we can't even have a united front, it's over. Like it's over at this point. Like in that's the tragedy here. Like this show like it's not much of it's not, I mean it's hilarious. I don't know if we call it a comedy,
It's the
and
funniest
it's
show on
definitely a
TV,
drama.
but it's not a
Yeah,
comedy.
it's not
Yeah.
a comedy, like which is insane, but like in the end it's a tragedy. Like it's just a very funny tragedy. The fact that in the end they are not serious people, no matter what they try to delude themselves into, is just sad on so many levels. Like I don't know if Logan would be turning in his grave or like laughing if he was around. Like it's just there's so much to unpack with that
Hmm.
because you think about where everybody's going to go from here and like what everybody has lost, and there's not much left for any of them. I mean, Kendall's life is in shambles. He doesn't really have
Well,
anything anymore.
yeah. Let's talk about.
Even Yeah,
Let's talk about where we leave these characters. Don't worry, guys. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna go in depth later. So if you have any questions or any addendums, any clarifications you want from us, just message us, tweet at us, DM us. So we leave the characters. Roman, first of all, we leave Connor in limbo because he doesn't know whether he's going to go to Slovenia or not. And Willa may or may not be doing a long distance thing with an ambassador, depending on whether Mencken gets the presidency. Roman is drinking he's drinking his mom's favorite drink at a bar, a vodka martini, and he's smiling at it, which is, I mean, that's self-explanatory. Um, Shiv and Tom are kind of holding hands in the car. But I remember when I watched that scene, the first thing I was like, the power dynamics in this couple have so visibly changed. They're so visibly altered. I was like, it's so clear. I think show anyone a still image of this scene, and they'll be able to tell you who is in charge of this scene. Like it's like
yeah.
it's obviously great acting to Matthew McFadden and Sarah Snook, but you can feel that like the power dynamics have just changed.
She's become her mom in the
Oh,
worst way
Jesus.
that she never wanted to, because she's here she is with a man that she doesn't quite love,
Hmm.
having a child that she doesn't quite want, and not really being in control of anything career or business wise. She's kind of just there for the ride, and
She's
she doesn't
become
have much
Caroline?
connection to her own family. On some in some ways, like
Jeez.
she's become like a weird shadow of her mother. Like she's not really her mother yet. Like only
She
time will
still has some
tell.
agency. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
and
can
it's
still
only
go to
time.
politics if she wants. Yeah, but
Exactly,
still, but
and
you're right.
we
Oh,
won't know how it's going to be with her daughter. But like the sad parallel, and like this continues with the whole tragedy thing I was just talking about, is Shiv has somewhat become Caroline, and Kendall has somewhat become Logan, but with all of the loneliness and none of the power.
mm.
And that is just a lot to deal with. I mean, when he was these seasons won't be complete. Like all these board meetings, if we don't see Kendall walking in the street looking disheveled, and as he's doing that, I'm thinking, wow, Kendall walking in the park, that's such like Logan. And then the
And then
camera turns and Colin
You
is
see
there.
Colin. I'm like, wow.
Like they
I'm like,
literally, he has
wow.
become Logan. All the loneliness, but none of the power. Shiv has become her mother with just again like all of the loneliness, but none of the wit.
Wow. I can't remember if I tweeted this or said this on the podcast, but earlier in the season, I think it was after episode two. Yeah, two. And I said, Jeremy Strong is the best slow walker on TV. And that still remains true, man. Nobody slow walks
That
like
dude
him.
looks so heavy,
Nobody
so
slow
heavy.
walks like him. Um, I remember I was thinking of Matthew McFadden and Sarah Snook's reactions to the finale. It came out way back when. I think it was Sarah Snook that said that when they either when they read the table or when they were shooting the scene, that she went in and she was like, "Oh wow, this is so like so dire. The ending is so dark, so pessimistic." And Matthew was like, "No, I don't think so. It's quite optimistic. It's there's a bit of an opening there." At the time, it didn't make sense, but now I'm like, "Oh, of course he thought
Oh
that.
my gosh.
he's the,
Literally.
he's the CEO. Of course he thought that." Um. So obviously we don't spend too much time because we're going to do a follow up. So I think we'll start wrapping up. But I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not going to ask you who won because you guys know my thoughts on that. And no one was ever
Mhm.
going to win the show. Oh, no, there's probably someone that won. It's not one of the kids. Definitely, if someone won. It's Tom or maybe Carolina. Definitely Madsen. Madsen just came in and just won. Like
And that's something I thought about. It's like,
just
wow, is
won.
everything really going to go into the hands of somebody we didn't know it like 2 seasons ago?
No, I didn't know Elon Musk was going to buy Twitter until he bought Twitter. So what do we know? Um,
Such accuracy.
so,
Oh,
okay, so I'm not going to ask you who won, but I would ask you who did you feel sorry for the most during this finale? You can have more than one answer if you want.
I do want. Um, I'm gonna
I'm not
start with
surprised.
Kendall.
Is that number one? Is kind of number one, or just or you're not
He's
ranking
number.
them?
I'd say he's. I'm not really ranking them, but
Mm-hmm.
like because okay, like I said, Shiv, she hasn't really won. She hasn't really lost. Roman is essentially where we first found him, but Kendall, like they even give like they give us some more context as to how Logan told him at the age of 7 that it was going to be
Oh,
him.
we
Like
didn't
that's
talk
such a
about that.
thing to do to a child,
That was
right?
so depressing.
Because this is everything he's ever wanted, and now we have even more context as to why. He
Because
has no purpose in life
yeah,
outside this.
we keep on saying, oh, why does he want this? Like, why does he? But it's like, yeah, because he's been told for 30
Because he
plus
was
years that
told to
that's
want it.
all he
Yeah.
can get and all he must get. Like, if he strives for something for 30 plus years, obviously, oh, that was so sad, man, when he
Yeah,
said
like I
that.
mean, I have, like I said, I haven't spent too much time on Twitter. It's still quite early, but I know that there is a gigantic swath of people on the internet that are so sure Kendall's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And it's so, first of all, it's dark and funny at the same time that
Oh, I don't
that's
think
that the
Kendall.
fandom.
Sorry, I don't think Kendall lives more than 5 years after this finale.
Oh God, you're part of them.
I,
I mean,
I
it's
come on. Did you
plausible. It's
what?
honestly plausible.
Did you? He literally said that he cannot do anything else.
Yeah,
Did
I
you
know.
watch the
He
show?
said it. That's why he's really the one that I most feel sorry for, because
Yeah.
everybody else can rebuild on some level, but even, and he can, physically, financially, he can,
Hmm.
but mentally he's never going to get away from it, because even if he does build something else, even if the 100, for example, does come to life, he's always going to know that this is the one thing he was supposed to do that he was never able to, and that has a toll on that it takes on a person.
Also, first of all, did we know about? We didn't know that Iverson was not his child, did we?
I don't believe that.
Yeah, because wait, what do you mean you don't believe it?
I mean, I don't believe it. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not seeing that as a revelation. I'm seeing that as Roman throwing insults as his brother.
No,
Iverson is
no.
definitely his child. I'm sorry. I don't believe that.
Wait, but like, no, he wouldn't have reacted that way if it was not true.
I think he would have in that way. He
Oh
is
wait,
kind
but
of petulant.
Iverson is younger, right?
Yeah, because Sophie's adopted and Iverson is his son with Rava. Like, I think
So
that honestly works. Like, I
okay,
don't think.
okay.
I mean, them
Maybe
saying that
Iverson.
whole she has a bloodline thing, like maybe maybe that's the writing trying to say that's something that the family maybe had rumors about, but I really don't feel like that has much veracity. Like, obviously, as a writing thing, it's amazing. That's beautiful to put in there, but
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know if in the world of the show it has that much veracity. I think, especially since it came from Roman, I don't think
yeah.
Shiv would ever have said that. Logan probably, if Logan had said it,
Oh, Longhorn
then I would
100%
have
said
taken
it.
it. Then I would have taken it seriously.
Wait, I think
But
Logan said. Okay, wait, sorry. Let's not spend 5 minutes on this because
yeah,
I thought,
we might have to look into it, I guess. But
yeah,
I
we'll talk
feel
about
like
it on the
Iverson is
follow
his
up.
son. I'm not ready to accept any notion that says that Iverson is the son of Rava and some random person that worked in the office.
So in my head, Iverson was older than Phoebe. Sorry, Sophie. Phoebe than
Sophie.
Sophie. So maybe like it was a child from a different marriage or different relationship, but she's younger, so it would have to mean that Rava cheated on Kendall. So
Mm.
so maybe it's not verified, but it's probably true. What do we know? Anyway, okay. I was doing something for that. I can't remember. Oh yeah, like I mean, this is a bold statement to make for this family because this guy is backstab and then they're at the breakfast dinner the next morning. But you kind of feel like maybe this is, if not the end, this is like a real rupture in their relationship. Like
Nothing's ever going to be the same
this is
again,
Logan and Ewan
especially
kind
now
of
that Kendall
rupture.
doesn't have Jess.
Yeah, like this is the Logan and Ewan kind of rupture. Like you just feel like there's some things in that room that was said that just can't happen again, can't come back from.
Yeah.
But apart from Kendall, who else do you feel sorry for?
Um, Not because I have no empathy. I just want to say that I don't feel sorry for him, and I just want to put that out there. I don't really feel sorry for him, not because I don't feel for him, but because I
Yeah,
think
but
he's going to be
he'll be
okay.
fine. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's why. I kind of, this is sort of like, it's almost insane to say, but I kind of feel sorry for the graybeards that aren't Jerry because like
yeah. They're
they
being
deserve
fine.
their fate on some level. Like Carl definitely does, but they don't even know that Tom is going to, like, they're like, oh, are we going to stay? Are we going to go like golden parachute, or do we stay for one more round? And they don't even know that he's already decided to remove them. And
Carl should
honestly,
go, man. What's he
why
doing?
wouldn't he? Remember what Carl
Yeah.
said to me in episode 4?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Oh
zero.
Jesus.
There is
I
no
forgot
way
about that.
that.
I forgot the China meeting.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. It's like, and you're just here and like you're married to the old boss's daughter. She doesn't even like you. Like
oh, I
all that
forgot
stuff
about
he
that.
said. Like, even if Frank stayed, Carl was definitely never going to. So maybe on some
Yeah.
level, I feel bad for Frank because it would be good for him to have stayed. Um, I
Man, this guy should just go with their money.
yeah, they should really leave. Like, they should leave of their own volition before Tom has to get rid of them, because he's
Mm-hmm.
definitely going to get rid of them. Jerry is anybody with a brain will know that Jerry is useful. Unfortunately, Roman lost his for a little bit there
Hmm.
and decided that she
Um.
was not like. That's like the one thing everybody in this show that can agree on, that Jerry is worth keeping around.
Yeah. So mine, Kendall is my number one, obviously, like for things we've spoken about. Again, it's not like I'm like, oh wow, Kendall, I feel, but just you feel bad. Like
Yeah.
not like he deserves everything he gets. Like this show, they're all terrible. We've established that, but like just again, this most of this is down to Jeremy Strong's acting. But some of those things you're like, oh yeah, this has to be a tough pill to swallow. My number two is Greg. I'm just like,
See, I wanted to
he
say
was
him,
just
but I don't know if I feel that sorry for him, because I
he
think
was just doing
I
what
think
a
he's also
Greg
going to be
does.
fine.
Yeah, he's gonna be fine, but it's not gonna be fun. Like I think Tom loves him too much to ever throw him far away, and I think eventually Martin will like him again. Like Martin is cracking. Like Greg is one of those guys that they will like eventually, but you kind of feel like if Tom had told him, he wouldn't have gone to snitch. Tom just did not share the information with him, and he was just doing what Greg does. My number three, I feel sorry for this guy, man. He flew all the way from Monaco.
Please, please don't just me.
There's a line that Caroline said, which I don't.
uh,
I hope he doesn't mean what I think he means, because she was like, he came from Monaco and he has to watch his days here. What did you think when she said that?
I didn't think too deeply about it. I was like, is he on the run from something, or is it
That's what
like?
that's
I
what I thought. I
mean,
was like, is he on the road that he
I
can't
mean,
like?
they are doing something. Okay, so
Yeah,
you forced it
yeah.
out of me, so let me just go ahead. I think that it's
That's
very
forced out of
possible
you.
this guy was doing some very dumb things that ended
Mm-hmm.
up being very illegal things, and then
Mm-hmm.
had to run over here. That he consults his
Mm-hmm.
friend, who is married to someone that happens to be the mother of some very rich people about to inherit the company, and decides
Mm-hmm.
to get some kind of parachute / lifeboat out of them. Then it doesn't end up working out, and now we have no idea what's going to happen to him.
I mean, don't
And I
no
still
one
don't feel
quote
sorry for him.
no one quote me on this, because, like I said, all I know is like Kendall, I'm beautiful only one thing, and that's talking to a mic. But isn't Monaco like a tax haven? Is Monaco a big tax haven, or is it just where rich people go to?
It's a bit of a.
Okay, because he's coming from Monaco, obviously, so that implies some shady shit. And then she's like, he had to watch his days here, like he couldn't stay. So I'm like, it kind of means that he has a limited number of time,
Yes.
and he did all that just for three kids to laugh at him. I feel sorry for him, man. Um,
Well, okay.
okay, so let me replace Jonathan. Do you know what? We're a labor podcast. We believe in labor rights, and I feel sorry for Portia, who has to clean up that mess in
I
the
actually
kitchen the
really
next
did think
morning.
about that. I did think about that. Yeah. Yes.
Um. Anyways, okay. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Like I said, we're gonna be back. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any thoughts, if you guys have anything you want us to expand on our thoughts, our opinions, let us know. I'm gonna go read a bunch of interviews, watch a bunch of video interviews, listen to some tweets. Sorry, read some tweets. I'm sure many will be
Have
stupid.
some
Apologies.
conversations.
And have some conversations, and then I'll come back and have hopefully the same thoughts, but maybe more enlightened. And I think everybody's gonna do the same. But for now,
Yes.
please check out all our other podcasts on like the Barry series finale, the Yellow Jacket season
Finales
finale,
all around.
finales all around. And please rate and review on whatever platform you're listening on. And yeah, it's our 200th episode. I forgot about that. I said at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, 200th episode. I don't have anything to say because I can't promise how many more are coming. But for now, thank you for listening. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys for sharing. Like, yeah, I don't know. There are people that listen to this podcast and get in touch and really, 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 really enjoy that. And thank you so much. And yeah, I think we'll be back next week talking about TV with the one and only Oscar winner. Bye, guys.